Funny, creepy, and mysterious. That's what everyone remembers about the Munsters. But behind the laughter hid a dark web of secrets CBS tried to bury. The show was born from a blatant act of idea theft, featured actors who lay inside real coffins, and one who nearly burned alive inside his own costume. All of it was hidden to protect fame and profit. But now, Fred Gwynne, the man behind Herman Munster, has broken his silence, revealing 13 bizarre truths he personally lived through. And trust me, after this, you'll never see the Munsters the same way again. Fact 1. How Hollywood stole the Munsters. You're not going to believe this one. Remember the family of lovable monsters we grew up watching? They were stolen. Flat out. Back in 1963, two guys named Alan Burns and Chris Hayward walked into Universal Studios with an idea that could change TV forever. A monster family sitcom. They pitched it with full of enthusiasm, drawings, and storylines. Universal executives listened, nodded, smiled. They even took notes. Lots of notes. Then came the classic Hollywood move. We'll be in touch. Weeks later, without a single call back, Universal announced its brand new show. The Munsters. No Burns, no Hayward. Just their exact concept, under someone else's name. The Writers Guild got involved. It became one of the earliest, dirtiest cases of creative theft on network television. And here's the part that makes it sting. Universal didn't even try to hide it. They owned the monster movie rights, Dracula, Frankenstein, the Wolfman, and they figured, we'll take the rest too. Burns and Hayward eventually got quiet settlements, but the damage was done. The world fell in love with the Munsters, never knowing the truth, that behind every laugh track and spooky gag was a betrayal. Hollywood made a fortune on it, while the real creators disappeared into obscurity. Fact 2. The midnight crime behind Grandpa's hot rod. You know that crazy hot rod Grandpa drives? The Dragula? The one shaped like a coffin with golden pipes and a roaring V8 engine? Here's the insane part. It was built from a real coffin. And that coffin wasn't exactly purchased legally. Designer George Barris was told to build a vampire's dream car. He wanted authenticity, a real casket. But in California, the law was crystal clear. You couldn't buy a coffin without a death certificate. So what did he do? He arranged a secret deal in a North Hollywood alleyway. Barris loads it into his truck, drives off, and boom. The Munsters now officially has contraband on set. The crew had no idea. They just thought it was a fancy prop. But one night, someone noticed the funeral home's stamp still burned into the lid. Once word got out, a few actors refused to go near it. Al Lewis, though, Grandpa himself, loved it. He bragged, "Of course it's real." That's why it drives so smooth. That illegal coffin became one of TV's most famous vehicles. Decades later, Rob Zombie even wrote a hit song about it, Dragula, inspired by the very car that started as a midnight crime. Only in Hollywood could a black market coffin end up as a pop culture icon. Fact 3. The purple-faced Frankenstein who nearly melted on set. You've seen Herman Munster 1,000 times. That friendly Frankenstein with the goofy grin and gray skin. But here's the part no one ever told you. He wasn't gray at all. He was bright purple. Yeah, you heard that right. The lovable monster of 1313 Mockingbird Lane was actually the color of grape soda. Every morning, actor Fred Gwynne, the real-life gentle giant behind Herman, had to sit through nearly 3 hours of transformation. Layers of lavender grease paint were slathered onto his face, neck, and hands. Makeup artists used that odd shade because on black and white film, purple showed up as a perfect glowing gray. But in person, Gwynne looked like an enormous plum stuffed into a rubber suit. And that suit was its own kind of torture. It weighed nearly 40 pounds, Thick layers of foam, rubber, and padding meant to give him that oversized Frankenstein bulk. On top of that, he wore a 20-pound headpiece, steel braces around his shoulders, and platform boots that made him almost 7 feet tall. Under the blazing 1960s studio lights, it was like working inside an oven. Crew members swore you could actually see steam rising off him between takes. He sweated so much that he could pour water straight out of his gloves. The costume team had to pump cool air through hidden hoses into the suit so he wouldn't faint. Even then, he'd lose up to 10 pounds a month just from heat exhaustion. His purple paint would melt down his neck, staining the collar of his costume. The makeup crew kept towels and cold lemonade nearby, his daily survival kit. And yet, Fred never complained, not once. When he finally did almost collapse during a scene, he looked up from the floor and joked, "I'm melting," just to make everyone laugh. That was Fred Gwynne. Fact 4. The woman who cried her way out of the Munsters. You probably never imagined that one of the happiest shows on TV was hiding a total heartbreak behind the scenes. That blonde girl in the family, Marilyn Munster, was supposed to be the sunshine of the show. But the actress who first played her, Beverly Owen, was falling apart inside. She'd just gotten engaged to a man back in New York. When Universal cast her, they promised a quick pilot, maybe a few weeks in California. Instead, they locked her into a multi-year contract. Crew members said she'd smile for the camera, but the moment they yelled, "Cut!" she'd run off set and cry in her dressing room. No one wanted to talk about it, but everyone knew. She hated being there. Fred Gwynne and Al Lewis, the guys playing Herman and Grandpa, noticed. These were two tough, seasoned New Yorkers, but they couldn't stand watching her suffer. So they did something unheard of in 1960s Hollywood. They risked their own careers to help her. They marched into the studio office and begged the producers to release her from her contract. Universal didn't like it, but eventually, they gave in. Beverly packed up, left Hollywood, and flew home to New York. The day she left, the entire crew gave her a standing ovation. She married her fiancé, started a new life, and later said in an interview, "Fred and Al saved me." They were my real family. Fact 5. The night CBS and ABC went to war. This one sounds like a sitcom plot, but it actually happened. In 1964, two rival networks, CBS and ABC, launched two nearly identical shows within days of each other. The Munsters hit CBS. The Addams Family aired on ABC, and both were about weird, spooky families living normal suburban lives. Neither side knew about the other's plans until the last minute. When ABC found out CBS was developing a similar show, their executives went berserk. One of them reportedly yelled, "Get the Addamses on air first!" Crews were ordered to pull all-nighters. Scripts were rewritten on the fly. Actors were called in at 3 a.m. to reshoot scenes. The entire network was in panic mode. CBS, meanwhile, thought they were untouchable. They had Universal's monster rights, Frankenstein, Dracula, the works. But then, the Addams Family premiered 6 days earlier. 6 days. That tiny gap caused one of the biggest rivalries in TV history. The two shows went head-to-head for ratings like two Gothic gladiators. What's wild is that behind the laughter, both casts respected each other. There wasn't real hate, but the studios wanted a war, and the media made it happen. To this day, people still argue who won. The truth? Both did. Because thanks to that rivalry, both families became legends. Fact 6. The Grandma That Never Was. Everyone remembers Grandpa Munster. But did you know there was almost a Grandma Munster too? Early drafts of the show included Herman's mother-in-law, an ancient vampire matriarch who terrified even Grandpa. She was written as 800 years old, part witch, part gossip, and entirely unstoppable. The studio even cast veteran actress Jane Morgan for the part. They filmed 2 full episodes with her. She brewed potions, argued with Grandpa about old-world vampire traditions, and called Herman a stitched-up simpleton. The chemistry was hysterical. Too hysterical, apparently. When CBS previewed the footage, they panicked that Grandma was stealing the show, so they cut her completely. They literally burned her name off the call sheets, re-edited the episodes, and wrote the character out of the family tree. The reason given publicly was time constraints. But insiders said Yvonne DiCarlo wasn't thrilled about sharing the spotlight with another strong female lead. Those lost grandma scenes haven't surfaced. Not a frame. Only a handful of crew members confirmed she existed. One claimed the prop cauldron she used stayed on set for years afterward, tucked behind Herman's laboratory door like a ghost of a storyline that never was. She was real, until Hollywood decided she wasn't. Fact 7. The day CBS panicked over a stolen vampire mom. Let me tell you how close the Munsters came to getting canceled before it even aired. In the very first pilot episode, Herman's wife wasn't Lily. She was Phoebe Munster, played by Joan Marshall. And she was scary. Like really scary. She looked like she'd stepped straight out of a horror movie. All high cheekbones, long black dress, sultry eyes, and that Morticia Addams vibe. When CBS executives saw the pilot, they freaked out. One of them apparently slammed his hand on the table and said, "We can't air this. She looks exactly like her." Meaning Morticia Addams, of course. Where could be the problem? ABC was about to launch the Addams Family. CBS didn't want lawsuits, confusion, or to look like they were copying their rival's sexy vampire matriarch. Lawyers got involved. Producers panicked. Within weeks, Joan Marshall was fired. Her character was rewritten, renamed Lily, and reinvented as a softer maternal figure. Enter Yvonne DiCarlo, who turned out to be a total powerhouse. DiCarlo was already a Hollywood legend, known for the 10 Commandments. Casting her was risky. She was too glamorous, too famous. But she nailed it. She gave Lily warmth, humor, and bite, literally. Funny enough, Fred Gwynne and Al Lewis didn't want her at first. They thought she'd upstage them. Instead, she ended up saving the show. And poor Joan Marshall? She vanished from TV history. Her entire performance buried in archives, her name barely mentioned. All because CBS was terrified of being sued for looking too much like the Addams Family. Fact 8. When Grandpa opened a real-life monster restaurant. You know how some actors can't escape their roles? Well, Al Lewis, the man who played Grandpa Munster, didn't just embrace it. He opened a restaurant as him. Yeah. In the 1980s, in New York City's Greenwich Village, Al opened Grandpa's Bella Gente Pasta and Pizza. And he ran it in full Grandpa costume, cape, makeup, and all. Customers would walk in expecting an Italian dinner, and instead find themselves being greeted by a wisecracking vampire from 1313 Mockingbird Lane. He'd seat you himself, pour your wine, and tell you, "Garlic's on the menu, but not near me, ha ha ha." It wasn't an act, it was him, living the dream. He signed autographs between taking orders. Kids would come just to get their pizza from Grandpa Munster. Regulars said he'd shout from the kitchen, "Don't burn the garlic bread and pie, it's my cousin." And yes, he kept the restaurant spooky. Cobwebs, caskets, and black candles everywhere. It became a cult spot for locals. Celebrities stopped by, tourists lined up just to take photos with him. But beneath all the humor, there was something kind of touching. Al Lewis had been typecast after the Munsters. Hollywood didn't give him many roles after the show ended, so he created his own stage. By the late 1980s, the restaurant closed, but people still talk about it like it was a piece of TV history you could eat. That's not just weird, that's legendary. Fact 9. The contraband makeup. Here's one of those you can't make this up stories. Everyone who watched the Munsters remembers the show in black and white. Herman looked pale gray, Grandpa looked ghostly white. Everything seemed spooky perfect. If you'd walked onto that set in 1964, You would have thought you'd stumbled into a clown funeral. It sounds insane, but it was pure science. Back then, cameras didn't capture contrast like they do today. Under hot studio lights, gray makeup turned dull and flat. So the makeup crew decided to paint Fred Gwynne's entire face lavender to make him look gray on film. Al Lewis, poor guy, got painted green for the same reason. The crew said the smell of those chemicals could knock you out. The makeup wasn't fancy stuff. It was oil-based, industrial-grade gunk used in theater lighting tests. Once, Fred Gwynne accidentally wiped his face with a white towel between takes. It came away looking like someone had murdered Barney the dinosaur. He used to joke that if he sneezed, he'd stain the walls. When the day wrapped, both men had to spend over an hour scrubbing their faces raw with alcohol and cold cream just to get back to human color. Sometimes they gave up halfway and went home half purple or half green. Gwynne's kids used to scream when he walked through the door looking like an alien. But that's what it took to make TV magic before CGI and filters. And somehow, it did. Fact 10. The Munsters lost episode no one was supposed to see. Before the Munsters hit TV, there was a pilot episode that almost no one outside the studio ever saw. And Universal wanted it that way. It wasn't funny. It wasn't spooky. It was creepy weird. The set looked like a haunted motel, Herman's headpiece was shaped wrong, and everyone was acting like they were in a low-budget horror film instead of a sitcom. Do you know the strangest part? That pilot was filmed entirely in color, gorgeous Technicolor reds and greens, at a time when CBS was insisting the final show be black and white. So when executives screened it, they were stunned. Why does this look like Dracula meets Leave It to Beaver? They hated it. Someone ordered it locked away. Someone ordered it the lid. So, what do you think after hearing these 13 bizarre truths behind the Munsters? Did you ever imagine your favorite monster family hid stories this dark? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell for more shocking secrets from Hollywood's strangest legends.